It's a very long-running story, as in it really started 50 years ago. But bring it up to, say, around 2009, the state accepted that it had been illegally charging thousands of people for the use of state and public-run nursing homes. The Fair Deal scheme, which a lot of your viewers will be familiar with, then came into operation. But
these are people who would have been entitled to stay in a public nursing home. There was no space, and so they had to go into a private nursing home.
Then, from 2009 on, there was a group of people who would have been entitled to have public spaces in public nursing homes, couldn't obtain them, and then paid private fees to put their loved ones, often in a very quick situation, often in a very traumatic situation, into nursing homes. The state understood that they were now liable to reimburse these people, and in the instances where people had died, their estates. We have, and I have it here tonight, a memo which was brought to Cabinet in 2011 with the new government then, which was headed by Leo Enda Kenny, who was the Taoiseach, and the Minister for Health, James Riley, where they put together a plan to limit the state's exposure to huge costs, estimated on the one side $5 billion for those who would seek recompense in the public sector, and then the private fees could be up to another $7 billion. That's contained in the document. That's not contested. The state then had to continue that I'll be careful with my language here, but a very strong legalised effort to contain the state's exposure. That essentially means pay as little money as possible to those people who shelled out of their private funds.
And there was no question, John, about whether or not these people were entitled to this.
Absolutely none. And
that wasn't really up for debate.
What the state also accepted was that it had no real legal argument. So what they would do would be let people, by whatever way they wanted, to find out they were actually entitled to this, go and get themselves a legal team. And we know, as journalists, probably it's easier for us to deal with legal people. Often a lot of ordinary individuals don't like doing that, and they can't afford it. They would then get themselves a legal team and sue the state. The state would use their lawyers then, and this is all contained in memos, to contest that and argue that as long as they possibly could, until it came to the point where it would have to go to court, and then they would immediately settle. OK,
so this memo was from 2011, and we know who saw it. But the question today is, who else was aware of this, not necessarily the memo itself, but was aware of this policy, this strategy? Now, the Taoiseach today, Leo Varadkar, was speaking on Newstalk. He said, although he was Minister for Health at one stage, he wasn't aware of this memo. That's what he said, and that the story is more complicated than perhaps your newspaper has presented it.
Leo Varadkar said what he said. I spoke to other sources in government today, and there was a great difficulty in obtaining documents. That's what they said to me. We have the documents, and the memo that we're publishing tomorrow, an excerpt of, says that in May 2016, very close to the time that Leo Varadkar was to leave the department in a cabinet reshuffle, there was a new Taoiseach appointed, Enda Kenny again, he was informed of this policy. Further than that, he was active in it, and what the memo said was, and I won't go into all the legalese, was it has been agreed by the Minister and the Attorney General that settlements would be made, I paraphrase that, it's a bit legalistic, in the range of 40 to 60% of the claim, which means we would settle. So he is there in black and white, Leo Varadkar, in 2016 of being informed of that. Then we also will publish excerpt from a memo that the following year, the new Minister for Health, Simon Harris, and his Minister for State, Helen McEntee, were also informed of this practice of trying to inhibit and contain the state's exposure in paying people who were entitled to this money. And I tell you, I've gone through a lot of government documents in my 25-year career. Michael O'Farrell obtained this, our investigations editor, and I was shocked by the cold, callous behaviour of, not of individuals, but of the system, of the state, of civil servants and politicians over a period of 50 years in trying to stop people getting money they were entitled to, and who would pay that money to put people in a very traumatic situation.
And they've been charged when they shouldn't have been charged. It would seem
successive governments admitted that this was not legal.